If you've ever watched Bridgerton, Pride and Prejudice, or any period drama, you probably picture the Victorian era as glamorous. Gorgeous dresses, grand balls, charming gentlemen, and dazzling ladies. All very elegant, right? Well, what if I told you that beneath all that sophistication, the smell was unbearable? Yes, my friends. While those movie characters gracefully dance in golden ballrooms, the reality was quite different. Imagine a mix of built-up sweat, lack of bathing, rarely washed clothes, and streets filled with sewage. A true perfume of despair. Today, we're taking a deep dive into the grossest side of history, exploring hygiene habits, or rather, the lack of them, during the Victorian era. Fair warning, after this, you'll never watch a period romance the same way again. Hey Discovers, real quick before we dive back in, I've got a small favor to ask. If you love historical curiosities, epic battles, crazy mysteries, and mind-blowing stories that most people don't know about, then hit that subscribe button right now. That way, you won't miss any of our new videos and can keep uncovering insane facts every week. And of course, smash that like button. It really helps the channel grow and brings you even more awesome content. Alright, let's jump back into history. You know that lazy day when you think, I can skip a shower today? Well, if you lived in the Victorian era, that wasn't a lazy day. That was just life. Regular baths? Absolutely not. Most people only washed a few times a month. Some only touched water on special occasions, like weddings or severe illnesses. Yes, because back then, people genuinely believed that bathing too often could remove a protective layer from the skin, making them more prone to disease. Basically, the dirtier, the healthier. To compensate, some practiced the famous dry bath, which involved wiping themselves down with a damp cloth and hoping for the best. Spoiler: it didn't work. Others only washed their hands and face, because according to Victorian logic, if it's covered by clothing, it doesn't need cleaning. And if you think only the poor suffered from this, think again. Even royalty and the wealthy barely bathed. The result: a whole society reeking of sweat, filth, and despair. So next time someone complains that daily showers dry out their skin, remember, the Victorians were way ahead of that debate. Only problem: they were completely wrong. If wearing the same t-shirt 2 days in a row bothers you, congratulations. You would not survive the Victorian era. Why? Because washing clothes was difficult, expensive, and time-consuming. The result: people simply didn't wash them. And when they did, they used urine as detergent. Yes, pee. The logic behind this was actually somewhat scientific. The ammonia in urine helped remove stains and disinfect fabrics. Now imagine this. You wear the same clothes for weeks, they already stink to high heaven, and when it's finally time to clean them, you dip them into a bucket of fermented pee. Perfect, right? And did that smell ever go away? Nope. The upper classes' solution? Drenching themselves in perfume and hoping no one noticed. The result: a delightful mix of sweat, dirt, pee, and cheap floral fragrance. Now, before judging too hard, remember, Victorians didn't have washing machines. And honestly, if your only option was hours of scrubbing by hand or dunking your clothes in urine, you might think twice about washing your shirt too. If you've ever complained about a porta potty on a hot summer day, brace yourself. In 1858, the entire city of London became one. The problem: sewage from millions of people was dumped directly into the River Thames, which also happened to be the main source of drinking water. Yes, you read that right. Victorians were literally drinking water mixed with human waste. Then came the summer of 1858. The scorching heat made all that filth ferment, unleashing a stench so unbearable it became known as the Great Stink. The smell was so bad that Parliament had to shut down because no one could stay in the city without vomiting. But the worst part: it wasn't just the smell. Since people were drinking from the same river where their waste went, diseases like cholera and typhoid fever spread rapidly. So the stench wasn't just disgusting, it was deadly. The one silver lining? This horror show forced London to build a proper sewage system, which, fun fact, is still in use today. So next time you visit London and drink tap water, just remember, it could have been much worse. Ever been trapped in an elevator with someone who overdid the cologne? Well, That's nothing new. In the Victorian era, since nobody bathed properly, the solution was to drown themselves in perfume. The aristocracy was obsessed with heavy fragrances, trying desperately to mask their accumulated body odor. But guess what? It didn't work. Instead, it created a new signature scent, a fusion of filth, sweat, and way too much lavender. And it wasn't just overuse. Some perfumes were literally toxic, containing arsenic, lead, and even mercury. Meaning, instead of fixing the smell, they were poisoning themselves slowly. If you think guys who douse themselves in body spray at the gym are bad, imagine a Victorian ball. A packed room full of people who hadn't bathed in weeks, covered in layers upon layers of suffocating perfume. Basically, a chemical attack disguised as high society. The takeaway: perfume is great, but if it replaces bathing, it's never going to work. If you've ever complained about a bad hair day, be grateful you live in the 21st century. Because back in Victorian times, hair care was a complete nightmare. For starters, women rarely washed their hair. Why? Because washing it was a massive chore, and people still believed too much water was bad for you. The solution: heavy oils and even pig fat to keep hairstyles in place. Yep, pig fat. And guess who loved this new beauty hack? Lice. These tall, voluminous hairstyles were basically luxury condos for parasites. Since no one washed their hair often, lice had the time of their lives. Some women even slept with nets around their heads to keep the lice from crawling around the house at night. Yes, this was a real problem. And when the infestation got out of control, some women just shaved their heads and wore wigs instead. Wigs that, surprise surprise, also got filled with lice. So, basically, an endless cycle of filth and itching. Moral of the story: if you have shampoo at home, be thankful. If brushing your teeth every day sounds like a hassle, brace yourself. In Victorian times, it was a luxury. Rich people could afford toothbrushes, made from boar bristles or horsehair, and used powders made of chalk, soot, or charcoal to keep their smiles somewhat clean. But for poor people, that was just a dream. Instead, Victorians had a much simpler and horrifying solution for dental problems. Yank the tooth out. The catch: the person pulling your tooth wasn't always a dentist. Sometimes, it was a barber or even a blacksmith. That's right. If you went for a haircut or needed your sword sharpened, you could also get that rotten molar ripped out. No anesthesia, just brute force and suffering. Now, before you think, wow, that's horrifying, just remember, there were no fillings or root canals back then. If a tooth went bad, it was gone. So next time you're dreading a dentist visit, just remember, at least you're not sitting in a blacksmith's chair while he yanks out your tooth with rusty pliers. If you've ever complained about uncomfortable pads or messy public bathrooms, get ready. This will make you appreciate modern life. In Victorian times, there were no disposable pads, and public restrooms for women simply didn't exist. So, how did they deal with it? Well, not very efficiently. Women made their own pads using the same cotton used to treat battle wounds. Yep, their period products were basically wartime bandages. And they had no adhesive, no wings, and zero absorbency tech, just raw fabric and hope. Since women's restrooms weren't a thing, a lot of women simply avoided going out in public for long stretches of time during their cycle. No shopping, no social events, just waiting it out. And if you think period taboos are bad today, imagine back then. Talking about it was completely off limits. Many women had no clue what was happening to their own bodies because no one explained it to them. So next time you find a modern pad slightly uncomfortable, just remember, at least you're not wrapping yourself in battlefield gauze and praying for the best. If you've ever seen crazy online theories about how bathing is bad for you, guess what? Victorians were already on that level. Many doctors back then firmly believed that dirt protected people from disease. That's right. While we wash our hands before eating, Victorians thought covering yourself in dust and grime acted as a natural barrier against germs. Bathing too often? Dangerous. Brushing your teeth daily? Unnecessary. Cleaning wounds? Better to let the body heal naturally. Some doctors even warned that letting fresh air into your house could bring disease. So many families sealed their windows shut, creating hot, stuffy, and disgustingly filthy homes. Now, before you laugh too hard, think about this. How many weird health myths are floating around today? If Victorians were alive now, they'd probably be running YouTube channels telling you that soap is a government conspiracy. Moral of the story: just because something sounds natural doesn't mean it's good for you. And taking a bath once in a while definitely won't kill you. If today taught us anything, it's that humanity hasn't always been great at staying clean. Thinking bathing was bad, using urine as soap, and believing dirt was protective sounds insane today. But back then, people thought they were totally right. The real question is, what will people in the future think about us? In 100 years, will people look back at our Instagram filters and think, wait, they distorted their faces on purpose? Or will they laugh at the fact that we stared at tiny screens for hours instead of living our lives? History shows that things that seem normal today can look ridiculous later. So who knows what the future will cringe at when they study us? Now, I want to hear from you. Which of these Victorian hygiene habits freaked you out the most? Drop a comment below. And if you love crazy history like this, subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell. Because trust me, the past has plenty more disgusting stories waiting to be told.